The United States men's national team is back after a very disappointing summer to face the rude Canadians in a not-so-friendly match. The very first camp after Greg Berhalter has been officially fired, but with an interim head coach, as Mauricio Pochettino is only expected to take charge during the October camp. However, he will most certainly be watching, and our players must perform, as we will be facing the American coach Jesse Marsch, who joined the dark side along Anakin Skywalker and the Canadians. And today, we're going to be doing a full match preview. Hello, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to the United States versus Canada match preview. This is how it's going to go. First, we're going to go through when and where to watch the game. After that, we're going to go through some updates on the US men's national team, the roster, probable starting 11, and much more. Last but not least, we're going to have a special guest, the rude Canadian Josh from JJD TV and One Soccer, to talk about the current state of the Canadian men's national team, their overachievement during the Copa America, and probable starting 11 to face the United States. And make sure to drop a like in this video, as it helps the channel quite a bit, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for that because you probably just did it. And don't tell Josh, because he's like my 5th favorite Canadian, you know, just behind Deadpool, Bono, and of course, Terrace and Phillips. Roll the episode. The United States men's national team is set to face Canada this Saturday, September 7th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. This game will be played at the Children's Mercy Park Stadium in Kansas City, Kansas, not Missouri. If you're in the United States, you may watch this match on TBS, Telemundo, Universo, Max, or Peacock. So you got a lot of options. We're also going to be doing a live watch along here at Tactical Manager TV. So if you're bored or you don't like the commentary on TV, feel free to join. We usually get over 1,000 people in the live chat, and only a small percentage of them are degenerates and don't behave. And I'm not going to call any of them out by name, but you know who you are. You do. Spicy Jeff. Throughout history, these teams have faced each other 42 times, with 19 American wins, 12 draws, and 11 Canadian wins. Back in 2023, the United States was able to knock out Canada in the Gold Cup and Nations League. The Nations League one was actually in the final. But prior to that, Canada was able to tie the United States away and defeat them in Canada during World Cup qualifying. However, none of that matters, as this is the first time the United States will face Canada with Jesse Marsch in charge. A lot has changed for both teams. We're going to address all of that later in the video. By the way, another fun fact between both of these nations is that they will be hosting the 2026 World Cup alongside Mexico, right? Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And we did a whole video talking about whether or not the United States is ready to host the 2026 World Cup or not, because there were a lot of people abroad in general trying to push that narrative that the US is not ready because of the Copa America disaster. So go check out that video if you want to. It took a lot of time to research. It's a good one, and spoiler alert, obviously the United States is ready to host the World Cup. And I'll put the link to that video in the description of this video itself. Alright, now let's talk about the current US men's national team. The United States arrives for this September camp with an interim head coach in charge, and his name is Mikey Varas. That was originally the US men's national team U20's head coach, as we currently wait for Mauricio Pochettino to officially take over the national team. Now, it has been rumored that Pochettino is behind the scenes calling the shots already in terms of roster selection or even in-camp decisions, but there has been no official confirmation of that. Which is a bit funny when we say, you know, that he's calling the shots behind the scenes. It almost makes it seem like Pochettino is like this evil Sith Lord calling the shots. Which he is not. As far as I know, he's not an evil Sith Lord. Okay, now let's quickly skim through the US men's national team roster. I'm not going to go through it in details because we already did an entire live stream breaking it down. And here's the roster that Mikey Varas is bringing into camp. He brought in 4 goalkeepers. Ethan Horvath, that plays for Cardiff City in the 2nd Division of England. Diego Cochin, a very promising 18-year-old goalkeeper that plays for Barcelona's B team. Patrick Schulte from the Columbus Crew MLS. And Matt Turner, the backup goalkeeper for Crystal Palace. Now, defenders, he brought 8 of them. And you have Austin Trusty, the center back from Celtic in Scotland. Marlon Fossey, the right back from Standard Liège. You have Christopher Lund, that plays for Palermo in Italy. Mark McKenzie, the center back from Toulouse in France. Tim Ream, the center back from Charlotte FC in Major League Soccer. Chris Richards, the center back from Crystal Palace in the Premier League. Joe Scally, the right back from Borussia Mönchengladbach. And Caleb Wiley, the left back from Strasbourg in France. Now, he also has 6 midfielders in this roster, and they are Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis, Luca De La Torre from Celta de Vigo, Aiden Morris, that plays for Middlesbrough, Yunus Musa from Milan, Gio Reyna from Borussia Dortmund, and Malik Tillman from PSV. Last but not least, we have the forwards, which are the wingers and center forwards, and we have Brendan Aronson from Leeds United, one of the wingers, Follering Balogun from Monaco, that is one of our center forwards, Ricardo Pepi, that is a center forward from PSV, Christian Pulisic from Milan, Josh Sargent, the center forward from Norwich, and Haji Wright, the winger that can also play as a center forward from Coventry. With that said, what are some notable players that are missing and why? Timothy Weah, Tyler Adams, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Leonard Maloney, and Kevin Paredes are all missing because they are injured. Now, not all of them are roster locks, like Maloney and Kevin Paredes are definitely not roster locks, but they could very well make the US men's national team roster, but they're currently injured. Tanner Tessman and Weston McKennie are still getting in shape for the season because they missed most of the preseasons with their clubs. Tessman with Lyon and obviously Weston McKennie with Juventus. Now, Jedi Robinson, our best left back, he is out, so he can get some rest. With that said, what is our projected starting 11? And keep in mind, it's very hard to know what Mikey Vadas will do because we don't know if he's actually in charge or Pochettino's calling the shots. We also never seen Mikey Vadas in charge of the US men's national team senior team. But let's put it this way. This guy is a bit of a Berhalter guy. Even though his U20s were much more fluid than the senior team under Berhalter, if it was up to Mikey Vadas, we would probably see a 4-3-3. If it's Pochettino, probably a 4-2-3-1. Regardless of that formation, the starting 11 and player selection should be more or less the same or very similar. So let's pretend it's a 4-3-3 or maybe a 4-2-3-1, not that it matters, and go through the projected starting 11. The goalkeeper will likely be Matt Turner. I would prefer one of the young guys to play, get a cap, Patrick Schulte or Diego Cochin, but we're likely going to see Matt Turner. So the right back will be Joe Scally from Borussia Mönchengladbach because obviously Serginho Dest is not available due to a torn ACL, otherwise it would have been Serginho Dest. Now the left back is between Christopher Lund and Caleb Wiley. I think he's going to go with Lund here. He was the left back that was the backup in the Copa America, but it can go either way. But let's pretend he's going to go with Christopher Lund. The center backs will be Chris Richards for sure. Now the other one, I'm expecting it to be Tim Ream, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mark McKenzie gets a shot. Now the midfield, I heard that Yunus Musa will not be available for this very first game against Canada. I'm not sure why. So don't shoot the messenger. That's what I heard, that Yunus Musa would not be available. Now if he is available, he will start. But since I don't think he will be, because that's what I heard, I think the midfield will probably be Johnny, Aiden Morris. So quick update, it seems like Yunus Musa will be available this Saturday to face Canada. And if he is available, I fully expect him to start over Aiden Morris. That's all I want to say. Okay, bye. And Gio Reyna. The thing with Luca De La Torre is he pretty much missed most of preseason with Celta de Vigo. Apparently he was injured and in the transfer list, so that's why I think that'll be the midfield. But then again, if Yunus Musa is available, he will probably start over Aiden Morris, and then it will be Johnny, Musa, and Reyna. But since I think he won't be there, because that's what I heard, it's going to be Johnny, Aiden Morris, and Gio Reyna, and Malik Tillman will be the backup of Reyna. Up top, we'll have Brendan Aronson at the right wing, Christian Pulisic on the left wing, and Follering Balogun as the center forward. All right. Now, let's bring in Josh and talk about Canada. Okay, Josh, long time no see. Welcome back to the channel. You're looking very nice today. How are you doing?
Thank you. Making me blush. I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
So, Josh, we meet again. Well, actually, we haven't met in quite some time. The U.S. hasn't played Canada since the Gold Cup last year, where we eliminated Canada. But it was also a very weird game because the U.S. had a B team. Canada had a B team too, or a C team. Regardless, it wasn't the A teams. The last time the best of the Americans and the best of the Canadians faced each other was actually in the Nations League back in 2023, where BJ Callahan was in charge of the U.S. And who was even in charge? Was it John Herdman still with Canada?
Yep.
Yeah, so a lot has changed since. The U.S. did win that game in the final 2-0. But a lot has changed in terms of the players Canada has available, development of players. Canada looks a lot better. The U.S., in terms of players, looks better, but obviously after the summer, the collapse under Greg Berhalter, we can't say the same. But most importantly, you guys have Jesse Marsch. And I actually said this the other day, where I don't really rate Jesse Marsch that highly. But I do think Canada got the best coach they could get. I thought they were ambitious. They spent money, obviously, with the help of the MLS franchises. And you guys got Jesse Marsch, an American coach. And for the first time, he will play the United States. I know it's a friendly. But my question to you is, does it matter more now when you're playing the US because of Jesse Marsch, or as a Canadian, it doesn't really matter?
I mean, I would say the rivalry has been entertaining, at least from the Canadian. I know, well, that's why I said, like, from the Canadian side of things, I know U.S. Mexico, we're never going to get in the way of that, but it's almost like we're the annoying little brothers over the years, that since we've been getting better and making these games more entertaining, it's like we're just a thorn for you guys. But for us, like, you're almost like the bigger brothers, and we want to have the pool that you guys have, and we want to be able to compete the way that you guys have over the years. And we're starting to see Canada be able to do that. So I always am excited to see when Canada takes on the United States. Like you mentioned, the last A side was the Nations League final. I mean, that one stung. I thought it would have been a really cool opportunity to win that. But for this upcoming game, it is a friendly. A lot of people always say like the Nations Leagues are kind of a waste, but I'd much rather watch a competitive match than a friendly. But I am very intrigued for this match because Jesse Marsch, I mean, as you guys know, was an option, I guess, at some point for the U.S. men's national team. I don't know the exact details of it, but it seemed like he was put through a questionable interview process, was overlooked. He's got something to prove. He is American, obviously, and then now he gets to go against the U.S. With his Canadian side, where he took over and took them to a 4th place finish at Copa America. So his achievement so far with Canada has made his stock go up, and now he's going against his home country and the country that kind of overlooked him a little bit.
I want to talk about the Copa America in a second, very soon. Is it a bit of a bummer from your end? For us, it obviously is, but is it a bit of a bummer that Mauricio Pochettino will not be in charge of the U.S. yet?
Yes, I was 100%. It would have been a lot. It would have been a lot more intriguing to see Canada with Jesse Marsch, which for us, like you mentioned, Filippo, it was a dream. It was a dream appointment because we don't have a lot of money. I don't know what realistic options could have been better. I think Jesse wanted the job. He had ties to Canada. He suited the way that this team played. We had to use the MLS team to bring him in, but he was it seemed like such a perfect fit, and it almost seemed too good to be true that we could be able to get him, seeing that the financial issues that we're in. And then your guys' dream appointment, I would assume something along the lines would be Pochettino. So all of a sudden, it's these two programs with their guys that are going to probably lead these teams to the 2026 World Cup, which we're both co-hosting. Plus, there's the angle that, again, Jesse's American and was overlooked. Like it would have been very tasty. I think it would have made the friendly even more entertaining if you guys had Pochettino. But because you guys don't really have a manager, it's a little awkward, I would say, because you don't. I know I'm going to ask you in the preview we do later about your team and the squad and how it was put together. But I would have been a little bit more entertained to watch this friendly, knowing that you guys have Pochettino.
I will say this: there have been rumors that Pochettino will be behind the scenes. Obviously, it's not the same, but even looking at the roster, there seems to be some influence from him already. Just we'll talk about that in the other video. But it's actually quite interesting how out of the big three in CONCACAF, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., Canada and the U.S. went for the best hire they could in terms of coaching to increase their odds of having a successful 2026 World Cup, while Mexico decided to go back and hire a dinosaur of a coach that's been around for a long time. And anyhow, Mexico, good luck in 2026. I don't think it's looking good for L3. It hasn't looked good for quite some time. I think they have a worse coach than the U.S. and Canada right now. And on top of that, I think they have worse players. But this video is not about Mexico. Copa America, you just mentioned, historic for Canada to make it to 4th place. They made it to the semifinals. They lost to Argentina, and then they played with Uruguay, went to penalty shootouts, didn't get embarrassed, played well, and finished in 4th. A very honorable finish for Canada. But I do want to say one thing. I don't like to downplay the Canadian achievement of making it to the semifinals. But going through the group stage, I went to the first game against Argentina, Canada and Argentina in Atlanta. I thought Argentina could have won by more. Canada was wasteful at times with 1 or 2 chances, but Argentina could have easily scored 4 to 5 goals. After that, Canada, I believe, defeated Chile 1-0, right? 1-0. Playing man up for
beat Peru 1-0. And then tied
Chile. Yeah. So in both of those games, Canada played man up for a good chunk of the game. I don't remember specifically when they got a red card, but it was at least like a full half or something for both of those games. Quarterfinals defeated Venezuela. Sure, Venezuela is not the punching bag of South America that they once were, but they're also not a powerhouse. And Canada took them to penalties and defeated them. You can only beat what's in front of you, and that's what Canada did. There was a little bit of luck. It seemed like they ground out results. Do you think that the performance, sure, the result unquestionably tremendous in the Copa America, but do you think the performance has been a bit overhyped?
I would probably, it's hard to describe. So I would first off say in the group stage, similar to how you guys had an easier group in the World Cup, when I looked at Canada's World Cup, like if you swapped Canada with the United States in our World Cup, you would have been like, all right, the US probably had a very difficult time making out of that group, especially because two of those teams made it to the semifinals. So when you looked at the Copa America path, I thought we had a very manageable group. It was one that, I mean, if Jesse Marsch has been in this job for years, you would really expect to get through because we have, I think, a better player pool. The interesting thing is that Jesse Marsch came in just before this tournament started. So I think it would almost be unfair to expect something where we would just walk through this group no matter what, whether we had the better player pools or not, because we were coming off of a very, very poor 2023. John Herman was, it kind of seemed like his time was coming to an end. The players looked frustrated. They weren't playing well, and the federation had all kinds of issues. And I put out a prediction video saying, I don't think we're going to make it out of the group, not the way that we're playing and not under Biello.
What did I say, Josh?
You said you did. You said that we'd make it to the semifinals, and it basically went exactly as
without Jesse, by the way.
Without Jesse.
I was already saying that Canada because I was like, they suit the playing style against these teams. They have the players. They're gonna struggle with the Canadian physicality, which they did. They all complained about how physical Canada was. All teams were complaining. And I just had a feeling Canada was going to make it to the semis, even though it was a grind. It was a big grind. But keep going.
No, it was a grind, and yes, and that was funny. But I changed my tune. I still didn't know if we would make it that far. But once Jesse came in, it was almost like that lift. Probably the same lift you will get once Pochettino is officially announced, because you're coming off of a poor Copa America. We were coming off a disastrous 2023, and I didn't have a lot of hope. Now, making it to a fourth place finish was incredible. The performances were not always great, and that's probably expected with a manager coming in. But what Jesse deserves a lot of respect for is the fact that he didn't have a lot of time to kind of pick his players, and he made some bold decisions before this tournament even started with players that were a little bit unproven. And if you look at the two players that he really relied heavily on at the back, was Moise Bombito and Derek Cornelius, two players that were absolutely not locked on starters for this Canadian team. Bombito wasn't even really a part of this national team under Herdman, under Biello. And he saw something in him and said, you know what, you're going to be my guy. He really heavily relied on his starting 11 plus maybe 2-3 players. And you saw rewards in that because Bombito Cornelius put up big performances. He stuck with Kyle Aaron despite, maybe not scoring the goals, which is what I'll get into, but he asked Kyle Aaron to play a certain style, a pressing style, a work ethic along with Jonathan David, where they were just, despite not scoring, because both of them, I think at times it struggled, but he asked a lot of his players to play the style, which is a difficult style to understand with that minimum amount of time that they had. And anyways, leading into the game against Argentina was the only open game. I think there was a little bit confusion at times about how this team wanted to play. Canada did create chances, but this game, as you can see right now, is 2-0. It could have been 6-2. Canada definitely could have scored. They were wasteful. Argentina could have put 4, 5, 6 in the back of the net. Like there was a time. Moving on to the next game, I think they sharpened up a little bit. They got very fortunate with the red card against Peru to finally get that one. Same can kind of be said against Chile. Chile didn't offer much. I mean, even without the red card, I don't know if this game would have ended anything else but 0-0. They were two ugly, ugly performances, but it's a tournament. You knew that you needed these kind of results. They got the win when they needed it. They got the draw. They moved on. But they were wasteful. Canada could have won the Peru match by a couple more. They could have won the Chile match. And then the same could be said about Venezuela. Canada got off to an early start. They created chances. They could have made it 2-0 and put this game to bed. And that was a big story throughout this tournament, which is not taking those chances. Venezuela,
and sorry to interrupt, wasn't the Venezuela game goal a massive mistake from Canada in transition? Because I noticed this throughout the Copa America. You guys in set pieces or corners, more specifically, you would bomb so many players forward and you would get exposed in transition. That happened against Argentina in the first game.
It happened against Argentina quite a bit, and that's where it tightened up definitely against Peru and against Chile, as we picked up 2 clean sheets. They were definitely more cautious, but Jesse wanted to play that style. It was a bit of a mistake between Bombito and Crepeau. Now, the way that Jesse wants to play, he wants Max playing off his line. And I've gotten plenty of arguments around this goal and who you really want to look to. The ball was lobbed up. Max was out of his goal. Bombito should have, I think, done better dealing with it, but he was against Rondon, who's just a big center forward, very good at trying to guard the ball. He got better body position on Bombito, let the ball bounce, and then he just basically chipped it over Crepeau, who a lot of Canadian fans were looking at. It was like, well, he's way out of the net. I'm like, well, that's what Jesse wants him to play. He wants him to play as that sweeper keeper. And we saw throughout that tournament as well, plenty of times where that came in handy. So it, maybe a little bit of both, but if the coach asks you to play a little bit higher up like that as the keeper, I don't think it goes on Max. I think that Bombito probably should have dealt with it a little bit better. But the point is that we should have put that game to bed a while ago. And we didn't take our chances. We only scored 1 goal out of the group stage and still made it out. We scored 1 early on against Venezuela, should have had more. We ended up leveling it up. We got the win in penalties, went against Argentina. It was a decent effort, but at the end of the day, Argentina is a better team. It was the Uruguay match that I was impressed with because we should have won that game. I thought we played better. We created more chances. It was an entertaining game. Both teams seemed up for it. Obviously, the event that happened with the Uruguay and Colombia. Who did they play?
Colombia.
Game?
Yeah. The incident
that was
before.
There was still a lot of emotion in it. It was a really, really entertaining game. I thought we deserved to win it. Again, didn't take a couple chances, and then late in the match, Suarez levels it up and they win on penalties. So that one stung a little bit. But all in all, I'm more curious to see what this Canadian team can do going forward with more time under Jesse, because despite the performances not always being pretty, he found a way with not a lot of time to put the players he trusts in, ask them to do something. He adjusted. If you watch that Argentina game, like you said, tacked it. Nothing the same as the next few games that followed. And he deserves a lot of credit. And now he's out here recruiting dual nationals. He's, 2 of his big players he relied on got moves to Liga. 2 years ago, I don't know if I would have.
Bombito, right?
Bombito and Cornelius. So Bombito's at Nice and Cornelius is at Marseille. And we didn't have any real center backs playing at a top level. They're all MLS guys. We've had that for years. Now all of a sudden we have our starting 2 center backs who are relatively young, 24 and 26, playing in a top 5 league. Canada's never had that before. We almost have our best 11 all playing in Europe, and we have more players going over there. So it seems like a good time, and I'm excited to see what Jesse can do with a little bit more time. But this was the most fun I've ever had covering the Canadian men's national team. Some of these performances over Copa America, despite not being pretty, he got a nation to get behind this team, and it was a historic result.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how Canada, I guess the first big challenge for him outside of Copa America will be the Nations League, and see if Canada can actually win a trophy. They'll be challenged by then Pochettino will have been in charge of the U.S. for quite some time, like a few months. So it'll be quite a challenge, right, to beat Mexico, because Mexico's always a tough opponent in CONCACAF, and the U.S. with Pochettino in charge. That's the big challenge. And I guess for Jesse Marsch to be not the World Cup, right, before the World Cup to be a success, you guys have the Nations League and the Gold Cup to try to win a trophy under Jesse. That will probably be a success. If you can pull one trophy out of those 2, it'll be a success. But Josh, enough of Jesse. This was the starting 11 you put out on your video, JJD TV channel, and anyone that wants to check it out, go check out the video. You put the roster. Can you go through this starting 11? Just don't need to go into details, but just naming the players and where they play, so everyone can know, even though most USMNT fans are familiar with them. But I'll zoom in a bit more here. Can you go through this starting 11? You think that you guys are going to go in a 4-4-2 against the U.S., how you might play like a mid-block press? That's what Jesse has been doing, at least. But just take over the mic.
Yeah, no, agree with that. This is the team I would kind of put. I'll mention a couple players that Jesse might go with on this video, but he'd been playing a lot of a 4-4-2. I think at some point he may try playing a 4-2-3-1, but I'll go over a couple of the players that aren't here, and there's a reason that I think that he will continue to stick with this 4-4-2 system. We also have a pretty deep striker pool, so we have probably like 10 solid strikers to kind of choose from. It just keeps growing, so we brought 4 on this squad, which kind of tells me again we're going to play 4-4-2. So we have Maxime Crepeau, who's the keeper, plays for Portland. He had a phenomenal Copa America. He's going to be our guy for, I'm assuming, to 2026. The back 4, all players in Europe now, which I don't think I could ever say before. We have Alistair Johnston at Celtic. We have Moise Bombito, who'll be playing on the right-hand side. He's playing at Nice. Derek Cornelius went over to Marseille. He'll be on the left-hand side. We have Alphonso Davies, who is under Jesse Marsch, been playing in this left back role, and I think it's going to get the best out of Davies. Just simplifies his game and kind of ask him to do what he can do, playing for Bayern. Moving on to the midfield with some injuries, and I'll get over it in a sec, but I think Ali Ahmed's got a good opportunity to start down that right-hand side. We're missing 2 of our, I would say, probably our starting right mids.
Ahmed?
Ali Ahmed's at the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Okay, so he's in MLS.
He's an MLS guy. Tejan Buchanan would be there, but obviously with injury, he's been left out. Junior Hoylett's another player who's been down that right-hand side for years for Canada. He's out with an injury, so it's a good opportunity for an Ali Ahmed, who's 22. He's a talented kid, versatile, and I think is a player that could really shine under Jesse. In the midfield, there's no Kone, another big player for us, and with a Kone, I think he could have maybe, because he did play a little bit with the 4-2-3-1 going to that 3-man midfield at Copa America, but because he had so little time, he wanted to really kind of stick with the players he trusted and the system he trusted, which was this 4-4-2. So without Kone there, I put in Mathieu Chouanier, who just got a move to Grasshopper in the Swiss League.
Kone is injured?
He is injured, yeah. So
that's a big blow. That's a big blow.
I'll go quickly. There's a few players that are injured that are notable. We have Sam Adekubi, Ismail Kone, Tejan Buchanan, and Junior Hoylett.
Okay.
So all players who could push somewhat for starting spots. I mean, Adekubi is a left back, which could push Davies further up the pitch if that's something Jesse wanted to do. We were all curious, but he pulled out with an injury, and Hoylett's been around this team for a while. But really, Buchanan and Kone are two locks. Those are two big players playing for. Kone got to move to Marseille along with Cornelius, and then obviously Tejan Buchanan's at Inter Milan. He's out for a while. So without Kone in the midfield, I think Mathieu Chouanier can do a job there. The only other player that I could see starting, and I actually do think maybe Jesse will go with Jonathan Osorio. More of a 10. I thought it was at times risky to play him in a 2-man midfield.
Is Osorio still playing for Toronto?
He's still playing for Toronto. He's more of a 10. I don't think he's got the legs of someone like a Chouanier who can run. And I think partnering him alongside Ali Ahmed, who can also drift into the middle, gives Jesse a little bit more opportunity to kind of play with this team a little bit. But he did go with Osorio. So he obviously trusts him. I think Osorio, if he was going to fit comfortably in this team, would be in a 4-2-3-1 where you have that double pivot backing him up a little bit. But if he plays in this 4-4-2, Osorio will have a lot of defensive responsibilities, which he did show at Copa America he can do. So I think he'll probably start, but I would go with Mathieu Chouanier. Just got to move to Grasshopper in the Swiss League. Then we have Stefan Eustachio, who's playing for Porto. Jacob Schaffelberg, who was our breakout star at Copa America. He's playing for Nashville. I will note he's still in the Canadian roster right now. He did come off against Orlando with an injury. I haven't heard anything that indicates that he may miss out, but if he's not at 100%, we could see Liam Miller start, who got a move to Hull City this summer. And then the two strikers, I think that Jesse will more than likely go with is Kyle Larin at Mallorca and Jonathan David at Lille. And we do have our new dual national, Nico Seeger, coming in here from Hajduk Split. I just think he's coming off of an injury. He's coming off an injury as well. He's a 6, a position we're desperate for. 20 years old. He's a Croatian, Canadian dual national, chose Canada. But because of it, he's coming off of an injury. I don't think that he will start. So maybe a player we see off the bench depending on his fitness. So that's more than likely the team I think we could see, barring a couple players.
Okay. And then Jesse, like the Copa America, he does like to press, but he did adapt a little bit, Canada. I could see more of like a mid-block. At times we press in a 4-4. Not we, you guys, Canada, in a 4-4-2.
I would say.
I'm not going to go through score predictions, mainly because it's a very tricky one to predict. Like you said, there are players missing in Canada. It's a friendly, so Jesse could even test some stuff out. The U.S. will have Mikey Vadas in charge. The U.S. is also missing a handful of players that we'll talk about in your video. We talked about like McKennie, Weah, Tyler Adams, Maloney. Well, Maloney's a backup, but anyhow, we'll talk about all of that. But everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go. Josh, thank you very much for everything, for coming here once again. And guys, make sure to check out JJZ TV if you want any more Canadian men's national team content. And we're also doing a preview on his channel, so with a more American perspective, so you can go check that out as well. It's probably already out by the time you're watching this. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Josh. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go. And I'll see you all on Saturday for the United States versus Canada match live watch along. So I want to thank you all very much for watching and have a great day.